Hey everybody, what do you know? This is Leverbolt 76, I'm Chad, and today we're going to talk about the 358 Winchester. And I've got one in a Savage Model 99F. Alright, let's get after it. So in 1955, engineers at Winchester developed the 358 Winchester by necking up the 308 Winchester. Even the famous gun writer Jack O'Connor lobbied for it, as he felt there was a strong need for a powerful medium bore cartridge. But you know what? The cartridge never did that well. Savage even began chambering the Model 99s for it in 1956, just a year after its release. It had a pretty decent reputation as a heavy woods rifle, and even had a bit of a resurgence in the 1980s as a quote-unquote brush gun. And Winchester even developed another cartridge, the 356, that was identical to it basically, but with a rim, for their Model 94 XTR big bore lever actions. And even Savage in the late 70s, 1977 I believe, came out with a couple rifles, the Model 99 358 and the Model 99 375, to try to capitalize on this. So I really believe that the Winchester, and probably the people at Savage as well, felt like this cartridge would take off. But no matter how much they tried, no matter how much the gun writers tried to make it a viable cartridge, it just never really took off. And it does maintain a small following today, and you can still get cartridges for it today. I think Browning still makes a lever action chambered in 358, but it's really never been that popular. And to be honest with you, I've never really been a big fan of it. It's never impressed me much. And I've put together a ballistics chart with some other calibers, the 308, which it was born from, so we can compare those. And I'll kind of explain why I don't believe that it's at least not ever been one of my favorite cartridges. Let's get right into the meat of it. So that 358 on top has a muzzle velocity of 2490 and an energy of 27 and 53. That's with a 200 grain PowerPoint bullet. And then we've got the 308 Winchester with a muzzle velocity of 2620 and an energy of 2743 with 180 grain PowerPoint. So we try to do apples to apples here, and I think 180 grain is too heavy for a 308, but we'll try to get those as close as we can. If we move out to 200 yards, that 358 is moving along at 1,876 feet per second, and it's got an energy of 1,563. Now you can already see at 100 yards it was an inch and a half high, and at 200 yards it's dropped 3.5 inches. And whereas the 308 is moving along at 1,955 feet per second and carrying an energy of 1,527, and it's at 0 at 200. And then if we go out to 400 yards, the 358 is carrying 1,379 feet per second, and its energy is dropped off to 844. Whereas the 308 is moving along at 1,414, and it still has enough energy to get 800 foot-pounds out there. But where the difference really shows, I think, is you've got almost a full 4 feet of drop at 400 yards with that 358, and just over 3 feet of drop with the 308. Now, if that's the 358 to the 308, if you want to see a big change, then let's go to the 35 Whelen, and that 35 Whelen at 200 yards is moving along at 2,100 feet per second with 1,958 foot-pounds. So it's still carrying quite a bit of energy out there. And then at 400 yards, we've still got 1,600 feet per second and 1,145 foot-pounds. So you've got a lot more energy at 400 yards. And with 30.8 inches of drop, quite a bit less drop on that thing. So let's go apples and oranges. Let's compare that 358 to a 308 with a 150 grain PowerPoint bullet, which I'm going to say when it comes to hunting, there's probably going to be a lot more people using a 150 grain bullet in their 308 compared to 180 grain. I know the 168's pretty popular as well, but most everybody I know is using a 140, 150 grain bullet in their 308. So if we just go out to 400 yards with that, it's still moving along at almost 1,800 feet per second, and it's got 1,048 foot-pounds of energy with it, and almost 2 full feet less drop out of that 308. So if that hasn't sold you on it, then let's look at the 300 Savage. That poor old thing was relegated to brush gun status, just like the 358, but let's go out to 400 yards with it. You've got almost a full foot less drop out of that 300 Savage. It's moving a couple hundred feet faster, and it's carrying just 50 less foot-pounds, or I guess 100, almost a full 100 less foot-pounds, but I mean, we're talking 844 foot-pounds out of the 358 and 749 out of the 300. So I don't know, man. Both of them at 400 yards, a little bit iffy. Let's back up to 300 yards. I don't know. 1,012 out of the 300 and 1,151 out of the 358. I don't know if a deer is going to tell the difference between those two at all. So I'm just not seeing the advantage to a 358. It just doesn't make sense to me. I think with the extra kick you get out of that 358 trying to get that 200 grain bullet out of the barrel, I would just as soon use that 35 Whelen. You got a lot more bang for your buck. And then if you don't like that kick either way, I would go with the 300 Savage before the 358. I think I'd pick the 308 out of all of them, though. All right, well, hopefully I've made a valid argument on why the 358 isn't the best. It's not horrible. It's better than the 3030, I'll tell you that, but I just don't think it's an all-around that great of a cartridge. But enough about that. Let's talk about the rifle. So this is a Savage Model 99F, and it was manufactured in 1967. Pre-magazine. It's got the counter on it, as almost all of the older Savages do. But this being one of the newer ones, it has the Tang safety, if you can see it there under the scope. Of course, as all of my rifles are in these videos, they're never loaded, but it has a 22-inch barrel. It's got a heavy boss on it there, barrel boss for a flip-up sight, if you want to use that, which is kind of nice. It's got the gold trigger, indicative of either the featherweights or the DLs. One of the differences on these somewhat newer post-mill rifles is as you are closing the trigger, you can, or as you're closing the lever, you can kind of squeeze the trigger in and decock it. Well, you can't do that on these newer ones. You have to actually fire it to decock it, but let's see here. This old 250, see, I can squeeze the trigger as I pull it down and it decocks it. So it's kind of a nice feature the older ones have that everything after 1 million, they stopped doing that. But at any rate, you've still got the case hardened lever, which always looks nice. Like I said, the gold trigger, the jeweled bolt on these, on the featherweights, they always put those on there. And then this one has a Weaver Marksman straight 4-power scope. It goes with the rifle. Not one of Weaver's best. They were a good scope. I think they seemed to hold their zero well. They had good optics in them, but they were more of an entry-level scope. I think it was the beginning of Weaver's decline. Really, they still had an all-metal tube on them. This one has the 1-inch tube. I've never had any problems with this one. It has the fine crosshairs on it. But like I say, it's more of an entry-level scope. But as this rifle was made in 1967 and this was a late 70s scope, it's really what you would have seen on them anyway. But these 358s, they're interesting. On one hand, they didn't make a lot of them. And they are one of the more rare Model 99s you can collect. They're right there with the 284 Winchesters. They're hard to find, that's for sure. This one's in great shape. It's probably 90%, well above 90, maybe 99% on the bluing. Really good. Doesn't have the crack in the tang, as a lot of them do. So this one being made in 1967, it's also before the Model 99 358 brush gun. So that was a different model that they made. I think they made that one in 77, and then 1980 or 81 they came out with the 375, which was also one of the quote-unquote big bore brush guns, as Winchester was doing. So this is before that, and which makes it even more difficult to find, I think, and a little bit more special too. So, well, all that said, I think we need to head out to the range and touch her off a few times and see how it does. We're out to the range again, and I'm all set up at 100 yards. I've got my Winchester power points, 200 grain. I think we're ready to go. We'll see if we can put a group out there too. I'm probably about 3 inches or so high with these heavy 200 grain bullets. Try to get a zero at 200. We'll see how it does. We'll send a warm-up shot out there and then go from there. Well, let's see. About a 2-inch group here with that guy. We're really not too far out of MOA with these three, but I wouldn't call it an MOA rifle, but that's good enough to kill a deer with, I'd say. Okay, we've got the drone set up at 200 yards. Getting a little bit of rain in here this morning, so see if we can get through that, get all of this done before we get rained out. It's only about 38 degrees, I think, so just barely above freezing. We're here, I don't know, it's about 9,800 feet. We got some snow on the peak last night, Pikes Peak, so it's getting pretty dang close to winter time, that's for sure. All right, let's touch a few off, see if we can do it 200. Okay. We'll try for that middle-sized target. I think that hit it. Let's see if we can hit that little one on the far left. Well, that's pretty close. That's close enough, I think we'll move out to 300. All right, we're set up at 300 yards and it's still raining, so we'll see how we do here. Shouldn't hurt this 200 grain bullet much, I wouldn't think. We'll try for that big one first. We're a little high at 200, so I'm gonna try to go right on it and see how we do. Couldn't really tell where that one hit. Well, son of a bitch. I'm going to try for the silhouette. See if we can hit that fucker. Huh. Well, let's just go out to 400. We're at 400. We'll go ahead and send a few out there, see what they do. And it looked like it was a little low. Holy smokes. All right. All right, don't shut the video off yet. While we're out here today, it's October 2nd, and man, it is pretty out here, about 9,800 feet. I'm gonna show you guys a quick peek of Colorado high country.